Hey everybody, it is Dan Kelson from PlexiCam.com. Today's interview that I just wrapped up about 5 minutes ago is with Rob Ruscher. He's a professional cinematographer. He's done commercial work that you may have seen on TV, in film work, and as well as, partly due to COVID, work with businesses, small businesses, large businesses, on how to show up on camera, despite not necessarily being a professional actor. So I wanted to talk to him because he literally has mastery over how lighting works, how to think about the background. We talk a little bit about settings you might want to use if you use a more professional camera and not a webcam, or even to use an iPhone, which we talked a lot about. That is probably the best camera you're going to have until you spend a lot more money. So you may want to listen to that part. But he is able to talk about things that pros would have their secret language amongst each other, but you and I, and anybody you care to share with, can actually understand it and put it into place. We talk content strategy, why are you even on camera, as well as how can you look and sound your best. The importance of audio, which you may have heard, which is also true. If you can improve your audio, that's another way to stand out, which is a wonderful thing for you. Anyhow, that and a whole lot more. Let's just get straight to it. Rob, thank you for coming on the show. We've talked many times. We ran across each other, 6 months ago, maybe longer, but I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. How you doing?
I have not had my coffee, but I'm hoping yours will transmit over the waves to me.
There you go. Let's hope. The studio's looking good, too. I meant to say that earlier.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So for people who don't know, I had a pipe burst in my basement, which was not as bad as it could have been, but it was bad enough that it took like 6 weeks to get everything back in place, get the water out and all that fun stuff. So I recommend, if you haven't checked your pipes lately, you might want to take a look at those. So not a lot of fun, but thank you. It actually did force me to. It was an opportunity for me to streamline things. So my setup is radically simpler now, which is really handy because that's a lot less to worry about, which I think we might talk slightly about that kind of thing in this interview. So your background, cinematographer, which like literally cinema, I mean, so you've done all sorts of work. Can you describe a little bit about what the world of a cinematographer is from your experience?
Yeah, they kind of go in between cinematographer, director of photography, which we'll just say they mean the same thing because they pretty much do. But really what it depends on is how big of a crew you're on. I feel like my job changes that way. So, on some shoots, it's just a couple of us. I have the camera maybe on my shoulder, running around with sticks. That could be at like a live event, and we're lighting some things. But more of what my work is, what it's been for the past, 5-6 years, is that commercial set that's somewhere between 10 to 20 people. That's kind of like the sweet spot. So with that, it's I'm on the camera and I'm operating it, whether it's like on a gimbal or handheld tripod. I have a camera assistant who's like pulling focus, and which is the greatest thing when you can. What I love is when I can just focus on what's in the frame and nothing else. I just want to see what the lights are doing, how the objects, the talent are moving in the frame, and then other people are dealing with everything else, batteries, cards, and which is great because like when you get at a certain level, the stress it's hard to explain, but sometimes you're lining up a shot, let's say for like a big music video. I love doing those. I've done a couple for 21 Pilots, Imagine Dragons. But sometimes you have 2 takes to get it done. And you have 100 some people staring at the monitor watching you do it. But I love that. At the same time, it's like, it's the end of the line, the last chord at the last whatever, sports analogy, insert there. But sometimes it is really fun doing that. So that's a lot of my work. And then with the pandemic, the work changed slightly. I was doing a lot more local work, which was fine, and working with some of the agencies in town and still doing that. And then through all that and how the world shifted, I've also started consulting a lot just from the knowledge and experience I've built and doing like home studios and just helping kind of business professionals that like yourself that are on camera, just help you look and sound your best and, give you some tips along the way.
Are the people that you're working with, have they already jumped out of webcam categories and into, real cameras, so to speak?
Most of them, yeah. So I know one, we just got I think it's just the built-in webcam he's been using, but we got the Sony ZV-10, I believe it's called. They have so many of those models, but It's basically like the entry level that you can have your own lens, so you can add a lens to it. But
Gotcha. Yep.
so that will give them some options with the depth. But I mean, the other option too is the iPhone. The PlexiCam with an iPhone holder is something I recommend a lot, because it's like after that you're looking at $300 plus. I would say you go from a built-in webcam or your $100 webcam. The next phase up is, Elgato has the Facecam Pro, and then the Insta360, the Osbot. So for me, it's just like, I don't know, the iPhone, and you get some software to get the manual controls. It looks really good. And especially if you already have the Apple computer, it connects wirelessly if you want. You don't have to even use a cable. So
Right.
it's pretty wild. But
Yeah. I like that. The idea of just taking your phone and going into selfie mode so that then you can see what you look like in your background. That is nice, easy troubleshooting. I do think it could be very inspiring. Although
yeah, and it doesn't
move a bunch of furniture.
it might, but sometimes you find that just like by moving things in a different space or in a different place and organizing it differently, it just makes your life easier. So yeah, you're gonna maybe be out a day reorganizing your office, but how much faster and more efficient will you work once it's set up and you're not running all over from one room to the next to get things?
Right.
Because I definitely wouldn't be making as much content if it wasn't so easy. If every time I had to spend 20, 30 minutes to like relight and set things up and move a microphone in place, I don't know how much content. I guess I would try to record everything in one day, but I find it easier just to kind of record as I need to.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect, which I think is another lesson. There is so much that you could do. You could spend infinite money on lights, microphones, backgrounds, editing, all that kind of stuff. But what is there like minimum? What's like the upgrade if you've gone from webcam and you've decided video is important and you want to take it up to the next level? What do you recommend as sort of that baseline beyond? I'm just using my overhead lights, and I realize that between turning up my brightness on my computer screen in front of me, probably not doing the best for my video quality.
So, like, are you saying maybe they have the iPhone and they want more than that, or? Well, because I guess the first stage would kind of be an iPhone and see what that does. And then, the next stage is you need to invest in audio equipment, I would say is a very important thing. And even I have 15 years experience doing this. It's way easier to fix video mistakes or add a B-roll clip than it is to fix audio that's not there. There's a point where audio is just not fixable. If there's a lot of sound going in and you're just using, let's say, your MacBook Pro built in and it's reverbing, we're not fixing that in post, and you're certainly not spending the time to even make it worthwhile. So just having headphones, even using your AirPods is way better than your speakers. But I would say spending $100 on a decent mic, $100 to $200. And if you do want to just do the buy once, cry once, as I like to say, where you're not going to rebuy it next year in 6 months, Shure makes like an amazing microphone for $250, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's something you can grow with. You can just plug it right into your computer, and then, down the line, if you want to get a mixer, add some effects on that you can tune and sound better, you can grow with you. So I would even go audio route. If let's say you're using your iPhone for a webcam and you're liking that, and then lights. I mean, and you don't have to go crazy. Hopefully there's a window in your room and you can use that to help light you a little bit, but then just getting some kind of panel light. I know there's like cheap knockoffs for like $30, $40, but again, I don't like buying gear twice, and I've been doing this so long and I've done that enough times. So, Elgato is a brand name I trust for a lot of things. So I know, like, for their microphones, I recommend that. I know they're a great company too. So if like something breaks or something's not working, it's actually a company you can reach out to and get help with. You get replaced. It's not just this random Amazon company. No offense to that. You got to do what you got to do. I've bought in a lot of cheap stuff, but I think if you stay in it long enough, you'll realize there's more to specs when it comes to pricing on camera equipment.
Yeah.
So like Elgato has like a Keylight Air, I think that's like $130, and then they have a bigger panel, which I really love, is the Keylight, and that's like $190.
Right. And then even just one light can be enough, whether you use a card or not.
And especially if you're on your iPhone and you can get a software such as like Shoot or I think it's like, is it Camo Studio? They have an app. Yes, but that's it. I was thinking re-incubate. But yes, so and then you can get manual controls of the iPhone and you'll notice how much you don't need as much light. You know, if you're using just your built-in webcam, you need to blast yourself with so much light for it to look good.
Right.
And so that's the advantage of like an iPhone or getting better cameras. Their sensitivity to light is much better before it gets noisy and grainy.
Yeah. There's more computing power tied to just one of the probably 3 cameras in your iPhone than there is in any webcam that exists.
Definitely.
And as it turns out, Apple cares about visual quality. So, right. Let's give a little more advice then. So for smartphones, would you recommend that they use the front-facing camera or the back-facing camera?
The back-facing are usually higher quality and they have more megapixels. So that's why, again, I mean, I do recommend the PlexiCam, not just because you're sitting in front of me, but that's like, I feel like that is the best iPhone mount because otherwise you're trying to rig like a tripod on top of your computer over your monitor, or you're trying to rig it up and over. I just find that has like the clear plexiglass and your actual iPhone mount is nice. I've used a couple others that are weird, but whichever mount you get, I really like it. So I think that's like the easiest way to get it up there. And then again, you'll have if you get a third-party software, you can then control the settings on your computer, so you don't need to see, your screen.
But so Ecamm is awesome. But Camo Studio, I've told those guys over and over again that's like some of the most beautiful software I've ever seen, and I've been a Mac guy since 1986, I think. So
yeah,
I've seen a lot of stuff. So let's talk about, so there's there's a setup and how to, things you might consider when you're doing your own space, whatever that happens to be. So when you're thinking about content, maybe back up, like how do you advise people to think through what is their content strategy, or is that something that you get involved in?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat. I mean, I have my own content strategy. I think I'm still developing that, so it's not necessarily something I help on, but I'll obviously give feedback when they're telling me about the content they're making. But I'm definitely a fan of podcasting. I think it's such a great way to test some skills. That, and then just a lot of it is not only to create their own content, but it's just because we're on camera so much revenue is being driven and made and sales are being converted from a call on Zoom, or, I've done a couple webinars, or I've been on different live streams, and then work comes from that. Somebody saw me and they were curious about something. That it just works. I feel like when I've gone even professionally in pitch meetings, or you're doing like client calls, people just take you way more seriously when you wear a nicer shirt and you look lit well and you sound good. You're filling like the room. You're not like way back here and no one can hear you. It's like when you have those, there's this presentation value to it, and I just feel like it makes it easier to whatever your goals are. Mine, to be honest, are to make money and sell things and get projects. That's why I show up on camera. And I found it's just been easier to do that or convince people of my capabilities.
Right. Yeah. Because I have been a gamer for a long time, and I kind of like that aesthetic. I've had various iterations of my background that are blue and purple and, and dark and, all that kind of stuff, which was fun early in the pandemic because most people didn't have anything that looked like they put it together on purpose. So that was kind of cool, and I stuck out. But if you're amongst a whole bunch of business people who are sitting at a desk in an office, and you're the one person that has a setup that looks like a gamer, it maybe stands out in a way you don't want to necessarily. So I am actually happy that my little accident in the basement here forced me to rethink it, and I just went for a more light setting, which does feel like it's maybe even just psychologically, maybe it's more about hope than it is about gloom from the lighting, right? Because lighting does matter, it turns out.
There's so much to it, because there's even a point where like there's so much confidence you gain, and that's not something I really thought of even when I started consulting and working like doing the work I'm doing currently. But people that I worked with, even on the podcast, if I transformed their space, it was like a week, 2 weeks later. So far, everyone's kind of said something like, oh, I feel so much better on camera. Like I'm much more willing to get on camera, and I'm getting more opportunities at work. There's just such a like butterfly effect to just showing up. And I think it's a fun way to show your personality. I've had one person describe it as, he said, it's like your virtual suit. And I was like, I love that, because it's, how are you appearing? How are you showing up for, your audience or whoever it is that's on the other side of the camera?
Right. Yeah. And I've used that analogy before too. But, beyond the leeway that you get, why not kind of tilt the playing field in your favor by standing out in a good way with, like, great audio is super rare in most Zoom calls that I've been part of, unless it's a podcast situation where people spent some more time.
And I think the other thing you'll notice, because I've seen this in my career, just as each social media platform took on video more, video was like the way to go. And even to the point where I just remember all of a sudden projects were like more worried about than the 16:9, and at first you're like, oh man, it's really annoying to switch your brain to frame for that. But I saw that trend. And what I'm seeing now on LinkedIn is, if you scroll through, most people on LinkedIn that I'm seeing videos consistently sound good. You know what? It doesn't look like they're on their webcams. They're not all choppy. And the ones that do, I don't know about you, but I just don't listen to. And if I click on a podcast and the guest sounds terrible, it's like if you go on the radio and your favorite song pops on, but then it's all staticky, it's in between. Most of the time, unless you're just dying to hear that song, you're going to switch to the next, right? So I think people are starting to realize that more, because a lot of times it's almost like you don't notice it until you see it and you hear it side by side. And especially talking to the LinkedIn audience, if all the podcasts you're listening to, if all this video content you're watching is higher quality, and again, you don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be $1 million setup, but if it just seems like everyone's putting effort in, and you're clearly seeing those that aren't. So I don't know if that's harsh, but that's kind of the truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a continuous improvement guy, so you can always be better, right? Which is sometimes inspiring, sometimes really annoying to think like that. But step one is realizing you have a problem, right? And I like, we don't have a 12-step program for being on camera. Maybe we should create one. That might be a great little.
Maybe we should.
But it's funny that it hasn't really surfaced like to the very top that, this is a thing. If you want to stand up, and like, if the controversy about should you work, do companies want people working back in the office? Do their people actually want to be back in the office? Why not make it so it looks like you can totally cover anything you need to handle just fine by being at home, and maybe you're even better set up to be successful at home. So.
Yeah, one of the people I transformed their office, they said that too. They're like, I'm glad, because each year they get reviewed if you're going to be home or not. And now he's like, well, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, if my space at home is better looking than the office or the cubicle you give me, and it's quiet, why would I need to? It's just I think that's a big advantage. But
yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think it's like, even for mine, I use the tools that I know, but I really just have one light at the end of the day. It's a nice camera and a decent lens, but it's really just one light that's placed in the right spot with some diffusion in front of it to soften it. So it doesn't have to be like overly complicated either. And I think if you determine what your goals are for being on camera, are you being on camera to build an audience? Well, you should look better, because people are going to want to watch more of you or hear more of you. Are you trying to make money? Well, what a better way to instill confidence in people? Like, if I was like, hey, I'm here to tell you how to look good on camera, it's like, okay, cool. He knows what he's doing. But if I was on my laptop and the ceiling fan is going over my head and the lights change, I'm like, I'm going to tell you how to look and sound your best on camera. You'd be like, I don't know. Maybe you need to work on yourself first.
Yeah, maybe faking it till you make it in that situation is a bad idea.
Yeah, and even networking. If your goal is just on LinkedIn, just to meet more people, you love your job, you're doing what you want to do. So many people have contacted me just from, hey, what did you use for this? When I was just a guest in something else, but they saw me, or I came up on stage and talked or answered a question, And then privately, they reached out. So it's like, what a better way to stand out if you're trying to just merely connect with people and grow your network.
What's your thoughts on, because there's this whole trend, I think primarily driven by TikTok, about, vertical format shorts that are 10, 30, 60 seconds, maybe a couple minutes, but much shorter than like this entire interview, right? So if you're creating content like that, do you see any benefit in thinking through or executing short pieces and publish those, or go for a longer thing and then slice it up and publish shorts out of the longer material?
I think if you haven't done any video content, I would try to just tackle one-off shorts. You try to shoot a few of them, because video it's hard, and even being on camera, it's a muscle thing. I throughout my career, I've kind of been on camera, little interviews here, behind the scenes, gear reviews. But until I was podcasting, it wasn't this consistent, until I was trying to put out like a lot of video content. And maybe I was just cocky, just saying, oh, you got it. But it's like, oh man, like, this is hard. I think if you didn't do any video before, or just a little bit, trying to knock off like an hour-long interview you're probably never going to do it. And I think there's like a lot of things, the first couple videos, the first couple things you do are probably not going to be great, but you have to do those and kind of stumble through it to get into a flow. But so I guess the quick answer is, I would just tackle like anything under like 30-second video. You write out your idea, figure out what you want to say, and then start there, and then start building up. And again, understanding your goals, what you want with the video. Is it to bring them to the website, to buy something, to click something? Then you can work backwards. But that's also why I like the podcast, because I don't feel like I'm really trying to sell anything. Like you said, it's just get to meet people, learn, explore what other people are doing. And then, but what happens? I'm sure you've had it. I'm sure you've gotten PlexiCam customers because they heard you. They're like, oh, I like Dan. He says cool. Oh, he does this. Oh, wow. What's that Plex? Oh, okay. I'll buy that. I already like Dan. I agree with what he's saying. He has cool guests. Oh, he makes this. He's part of this company. He makes a cool product. Right. Well, as soon as I'm in need for something like that, why am I going to even look anywhere else or research anywhere else?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been telling people for years, once I understood LinkedIn, and I'm not like a master of it, but the benefit of it is show evidence of what you're capable of, instead of a couple bullets on your resume or in your LinkedIn profile, and then they already know you. Like, unless you just completely screw up, I see like no downside to having, because now it's one of those barriers. If you can get known in any way, people are more likely to hire you, work with you in some way, and it just removes a couple barriers. That's just super useful.
And I also like, this kind of loosely ties into this. No one will ever hire you until you've already shot it. Like, no one is going to hire you and pay you to do this job until they've seen you do it. And even as an extreme case, I know people, or one in particular story, I had a buddy, really amazing director of photography, did great commercial work, and he didn't get a shampoo commercial because he's only done a commercial that was body wash. So it's like, that's how specific sometimes agencies get at that level, which I know sounds crazy, but then put yourself, I got farther along my career, and this is why I understood it, because I became friends with these head of the agencies, the producers. I was producing work, I was getting hired to do huge photo campaigns, and my ass is on the line. Like, if I mess this job up, I'm not getting hired to do it again. So I'm not going to risk it on someone I haven't seen it. So it's like, when I saw it on the other side, I was like, oh, that makes such perfect sense. And, so anyone on LinkedIn, if you're not doing video yet, it's, I just think there's such a power to showing someone you can do it without just typing it out. I did this and that. Well, show me kind of what you're doing. I think that's why Gary Vee is so popular. And I don't know why more. I wish I was doing 10 times company's growth and stuff. Like, there's so many people shouting about it, but show me, put me in the meeting. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the content he does now, Gary Vee, but it's amazing. Like, you sit in the room with him when he's discussing the strategy for what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, that's incredible. No wonder why this guy is killing it. Whether love him or hate him,
right,
he's showing people what he does, and he's getting hired more than he can handle to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We don't all need to be Gary Vee. But
No.
I do like looking at kind of extreme examples, and like Grant Cardone and Alex Hormozy and Gary Vee, and I'm sure there's a whole litany of other Mr. Beast, one of the most famous YouTube examples. AI, Gen AI, generative AI, all the rage, especially in creative, anything that has to do with audio, video, still images, movie images, all that. What's the role that AI plays when in your own work, or if it's more interesting, what kind of work have you seen any of your clients or partners that you want to do with AI that seems to has done whatever it is that is doing for you, that seems like it's worthwhile and you're happy that this was the year it happened?
Yeah, I would say there's almost two scales to this. So like more simple approach is I love ChatGPT once I learned how to prompt it. And specifically, I've just been honest with like where my weakness is as a writer, because I feel like I'm a decent writer. I've had to write enough, and I've read enough scripts, but I always mess up with like the flow. It's just so important. You just like, I have ADD, so sometimes my mind goes in different places. So I really love using it I will say kind of what I'm writing and my audience, and I will leave it with like, what's the best way to structure this? So it's not I'm having it write it for me, but it'll, break it all up in a neat way. I copy and paste that in Google Docs, and then I get to work, and then wherever I'm struggling, what's a better way to say this? And then just copy and paste what I've written. And a lot of times I don't even use 100% of it, but it's like, oh, that one sentence ties this all up. And so I've enjoyed that, and that gets me going a lot quicker.
Yeah.
The other thing I just started playing with is doing a little bit more text-based video. So it's not me just saying to camera, it's just like little tips and tricks. And I learned this way where I have ChatGPT build out like a 3-column list that has like title, the first part of the text, the second part of the text. And again, it's not perfect. I go in there and edit a little bit, but what I end up doing is copy and pasting that, and I put it into Canva in the template I built, and then it like all of a sudden will spurt out 20 different 6-second videos all ready to go. And then I just go through and edit the text. So that's like pretty amazing, because I did like 30 some videos, and I think I spent under 2 hours, and I learned how to do it for the first time. So that's pretty insane. And then on a higher tier, in the commercial world, this has been coming up more and more. I haven't filmed on one, but I want to, is they're having these high def screens that have like their own 3D animation. So like the movie Dune, the new one, most of those sets were just big screens, but the screens are so bright, so high def, the actors feel like they're in the desert. And then as the camera moves, it's correlated to that image. So it would move like you're there. It's insane. So it's like you don't have to go to the Middle East to shoot these like beautiful desert scenes. And in the commercial world, I've seen people get huge TVs for the macro stuff and then hook it up to Blender. Now it's like you can just build a kitchen, right? You don't need to rent a $2,000 home to shoot all day or for multiple days.
Right.
It's like you can have your own home studio with this screen. So that's really exciting, I think.
Yeah. Cool. That's part of what I like about talking to people who are more expert in whatever topic that happens to be. Like overdubbing. Like now they're real close to overdubbing that sounds and looks natural as it manipulates people's mouths, and it does a great job of speaking not like a robot but like a native speaker in whatever language is translated. And it can't do that in real time yet, but in post-production, what a wonderful thing is now you can make it accessible to a much wider audience. That kind of thing is really interesting to me. I think that's just the beginning. And that in-camera stuff, I've seen some of those demos. That's wild. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's real crazy. And just the fact you can build it. Like I have friends that are been working in Blender for a few years, and they're seeing that as like, a phase that will start coming in a lot more in like movies and TV shows where you just build the sets virtually instead of needing to travel all over the world to get these locations.
And clothing thoughts. If anybody who's listening to us who I hope cares about being on camera and looking and sounding good, what's one thing that you would recommend that they do the next moment, tomorrow, whatever it happens to be, really soon, that would help them level up their game?
I would say a baseline framing. So a lot of people, you just put your laptop on the ground, you're looking up, and there's some psychological stuff to that too. And I'll just say it's not a good look for anybody. But at least you could just raise it. You could get some books and prop it up. I got like a stand from Amazon for like $12 that just gets it exactly where I want. And then again, if you haven't tried using your iPhone yet, that I would try that because it's free, especially if you have, I think it's free even on PCs now. But with Apple, you can just connect, it'll just read as a camera. You'll hear that little chime go off. I think you just have to have them on the most updated software. But that's like such a great way to just start trying to get, doing things with a purpose, I guess, and starting to show up on camera. Because that's the other thing. It really is. It's funny how once you start putting in a little effort, it's just like, oh, I look good. You feel more confident. You show up differently, especially for meetings and Zoom calls, and people notice.
Right. Cool. And how's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Rob Ruscher, my name, Ruscher. Instagram too, at Rob Ruscher. And a website I have with this, you could start at robruscher.com. That's all my commercial work. And then humancreatives.ai is all the training and the consulting side of my business.
Right. And for those who don't already know, Rob has a nice online course that I've taken that will not overwhelm you. I like to be overwhelmed about this stuff because I really geek out about lighting and cameras and all that stuff. But even though you could go nuts, you don't, and it's nicely focused and it's not too long and it's just accessible, which is hallelujah. And so if you need more help,
thank you.
Buy Rob's course or talk to him. He's an extremely friendly guy, and he's obviously knowledgeable. So pick his brain a bit, get to know him, and he does great work. So find him on LinkedIn, find him on Instagram. Cool. Well, Rob, thank you so much for flipping the tables and joining me on my podcast. And I'm certain we will be further in touch, but it was great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
All right.
Love being on. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.